What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Inside Inter Miami, the Miami Herald's show on the Inter Miami soccer team, which is blazing through the MLS these days. I'm your host, Andre Fernandez, Deputy Sports Editor, joined once again by Inter Miami beat writer Michelle Kaufman. This team right now, I mean, it's Messi mania, it's a little bit of everything. Michelle may not stop doing that for a few minutes, by the way, because with 6 goals in the last game, I mean, 5 in the second half. A masterpiece just doesn't even do it justice. What this team did, again, after giving up an early goal and then trailing most of the match until halftime, all of a sudden, in a matter of minutes, an explosion of goals, explosion of scores here, which we find incredible. But people who've probably watched Messi his whole career, they're like, yeah, no, that's Messi. That's what he does.
Yeah, Tata was asked, "Oh, you've seen Messi play for a long time. Does this surprise you or did anything?" And he said, "I mean, it was so matter of fact." He said, "Well, it just sounds redundant, but this is what he does. This is what
Right.
Leo does." And then he starts rattling off. Back in Barcelona, there was one game against Valencia. We were down 1-0 and we ended up winning 4-1 and he scored all the goals. Or, then another time, oh yes, when with the Argentine national team, a game against Paraguay, semifinal of the Copa, something or other, and we were down and he starts listing off the top of his head games that he remembered where Leo Messi just saved the day and scored multiple goals and that's what he does. I mean, but in this case, first of all, MLS has never seen it. I mean, there's never
No.
been a player like this in this league. And, you know, 5 assists, 5 assists is one thing that I wrote a story about Luis Suarez, which we're going to talk about Luis a little more today. Uh, but in the story, in our interview with him, he said Leo had 5 assists today. This shows what kind of teammate he is. He could have taken shots on some of those assists that he made. He could have, other players would have tried to score. He is so equally content doing one or the other. He just knows which one is going to be the best option, and all the other players are better for it. And, Luis Suarez had a hat trick, all 3 goals were assisted by Leo Messi. Matias Rojas comes in and has a brace. His first 2 goals with the club, both of them are assisted by Messi. And then, oh yeah, Messi, well, let me drop one in myself too, So let me just keep adding it,
Good measure.
because
Yeah.
so now, yeah. So, I mean, Messi, we'll start with Messi. He is winning every award that there is to win in this league. He was player of the month for the month of April. By the way, Luis Suarez was the player of the month for the combined February, March that they did. So far, the top players for February, March, April have all been those 2 guys. Then Messi, the last 2 weeks, has been player of the week, which is not surprising considering what he's doing. So he's been player of the week the last 2 weeks, player of the month for the month of April. In this game the other day against New York, 6-2 win, he set MLS records, broke MLS records for most contributions in a game, which was 6, and most assistance in a game, 5. And by the way, all in the second half. We're not even talking about 90 minutes. We're talking about all of this happened in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And Suarez's hat trick, which is insane to think, was happened in a 12-minute span. He scored a hat trick in 12 minutes. It looked, I mean, I could not even keep up. I'm going to be honest with you. I tweet and I'm trying to write during the game so I can post my early stories quickly as I can after deadline. So I'm typing. As I'm typing,
Scoring.
things are happening. I'm having to lift my head. What? They scored again? Oh my God. And then I put on Twitter, I always tweet, I try to tweet all the goals. As I'm typing one goal, another goal is scored. And I actually wrote in the tweet, as I was typing this tweet, they just scored again. I mean, it looked like a schoolyard. It looked like a playground game
You
between adults
you
and kids. And
you you
again,
were you
this
were
is
having the experience of a now former colleague of ours lifting her head and going, What happened? What happened?" Remember our dear friend
oh
Susan?
Susan.
Shout out to Susan. if she's
Yes,
watching the
shout out
show.
to Susan Miller-Degnan.
Yeah,
She's in Italy right now enjoying retirement, and, I'm so happy for her after 40 years at the Miami Herald, a true legend.
yeah. But that was one of those games where you were like, "Oh God, what happened? Who scored? Who assisted?"
Yes, and that's exactly what the New York Red Bulls were also thinking. And by the way, the Red Bulls, we're not talking about, we talked last week, remember, oh, they've been winning, yeah, these last few games, but it's against the lower teams in the league. Now they're going to get the Red Bulls. Oh, they're going to get the team
Hmm.
them 4-0 last time. They're going to get Lewis Morgan, and Forsberg is back because he didn't play the last game. Their starting keeper is back, who was with the Paraguay national team. Oh, this is going to be a really big test. This is not going to be like, oh no, this is not going to be like the other two games that they just won against struggling teams. Well, guess what? 6 goals in a half against a New York team that was one of the better defenses in the league, by the way. One of the stingier defenses in the league was the New York Red Bulls. They're a very good team, very good defense, and they had only allowed more than 2 goals once. They, 3-0, I think they lost to the Columbus Crew, which is the defending champion. That's it. And this team scored 6 in one half. I mean, if we, the spectators and media, our heads were spinning, imagine the guys on that field, thinking, what in the world is happening here? And B, how humbling for them, and how, distraught they must have been, to be honest. Yeah, imagine being an opponent facing what those guys just did. It was mind blowing. It really was. And so,
Yeah,
you cannot overstate what they're doing. You
yeah.
cannot overstate what they're doing.
For fans that maybe aren't like hardcore soccer fans that are just maybe this year or last year or just since this Messi phenomenon came to Miami that are getting used to all this. Like, to give perspective, this is like if Dan Marino threw 6 touchdowns all in the second half back in the day. This is like if Dwayne Wade dished out 30 assists in a game and only did it in the second half. Like, that's what people realize
Yes,
5 assists
yes.
doesn't sound like a lot, but in a half, let alone a game, in a half, that's staggering. And that's why this is like was so mind blowing. And this team now reaping the benefits. I mean, if you look at it now, only Cincinnati kind of keeping up 3 points behind, but they've now managed to push off New York, for starters, now 17 compared to Miami's league leading 24 points. That's more than 2 wins needed to even touch Miami now in the standings if you're the Red Bulls. Toronto 5 points behind, again Cincinnati 3, but like we talked about, they have to get a win, and then now they kind of have to hope Miami falters a little bit at some point to try to keep up in that. And then if you look at the goals, 32 goals right now leads the league. The closest team behind them has 19. They're 13 goals more. They have 13 more goals than the next highest scoring team in the league. I mean, that's staggering.
That is staggering. By soccer's, that's staggering. 32-19. I mean, it's just crazy. They're average, it's just nuts. I mean, 32 goals in 11 games. We're talking about basically an average of about 3 goals per game, which we
Right.
know that is just not normal. And so let's talk about these two guys, these two partners, the
Yeah.
dynamic duo, Messi and Suarez. Both of them have 10 goals. They're tied atop the rankings for the Golden Boot. Both guys have 10 goals. Messi scored those 10 goals in 8 games. Suarez has scored the 10 goals in 11 games, but still, they each have 10 goals. Messi has 12 assists in 8 games. Suarez has 5 assists. They are just, they're doing unbelievable. And Luis Suarez, I decided to write a story about him that you can all read at miamiherald.com. He, if Messi were not here, 2 things. One, if Messi were not here, he would be the absolute superstar of this league, because what he's doing is remarkable. Also, at age 37, by the way, both of these guys, Luis Suarez is 37 and Leo Messi is turning 37 in June next month. So they are both going to be 37 years old, and they're still killing it. I wrote about Luis Suarez because at the beginning of this season, there were a lot of skeptics and a lot of people saying, oh my God, this guy, his knees are not going to be able to hold up. He can barely run. He looks like an old man out there. He can't run. He's not going to be able to sustain all this travel, the grind of the MLS season. This was a mistake. This was a mistake to sign him. Okay. What are people saying now? The guy has 10 goals. The guy just had a hat trick in 12 minutes. He still has his touch. He may have lost some speed. He may have lost some speed for sure. I mean, he's 37 years old and he has bad knees. He's not going to be sprinting all over the field all the time. But when the guy is in the box or near the box, he is just lethal. We have seen, those of us who followed Inter Miami before Messi came, a lot of, forwards on this team who are good, who are considered very good. We're talking about Joseph Martinez. We're talking about Higuain. We're talking about, Pizarro. We're talking about guys who, even Robert Taylor and Leo Campana. All of these guys are very, good players. We can say good players, but they were not as precise. They were not as clinical as Luis Suarez. And what he does around the box, he has such good aim. And of course, now the other thing is, I said before, if Leo Messi weren't here, Luis Suarez would be the absolute star of the league. If Leo Messi was not here, Luis Suarez may not have 10 goals, because we just saw that 3 of them were on assists by his buddy, Leo. So,
Right.
you really need the 2 of them together, each one on their own. I guess, Messi maybe is Messi no matter who's around him. Luis Suarez was always scoring even when Messi was not there, but on different teams. But when Messi is there, feeding him the ball, he's an
Yeah.
assassin.
It's another level.
He's el pistolero. He's el
Yeah.
pistolero. He's, he deserved, I said he deserves a headline. He's always like the secondary headline, like Messi 5 assists, Suarez hat trick. Like the hat trick was the second thing in the headline. The hat trick was the second thing behind all the records that Messi was scoring. And
Overshadowed,
I
right?
said, let me give El Pistolero some love here. Let me give El Pistolero a headline, at least his own headline and his own picture in the
Right.
Miami Herald, because he certainly deserves it.
No, absolutely. If you look at the combined, you look at that line: 20 goals and 17 assists. That sounds like a season stat line for most. That
Yeah.
is a season stat line for most players, and we're talking a handful of games, really, a little more than a handful, but not even half a season. Like practically a third of it, less than a third of a season. And at some point, you were talking about pacing yourself at 37 and whatnot. We know that that will have to happen, and that will happen. They'll have their minutes management and whatnot. But even so, this is not just 2 or 3 games. Like this is already, he's sustained a pretty good amount right now at a high level and a high level of fitness for his age. So impressive to see him for sure.
Absolutely impressive. And the team is on a 4-game win streak now. After
Yep.
that loss to New York, which they totally avenged the other day. But after that loss, they've not lost since that game. They've outscored opponents 16-6. Like we said, they're leading with 32 goals. They're on top of the supporter shield race. They're, and by the way, the 2 games coming up, they look winnable.
Winnable.
They're
Right.
going to play on the road the next 2 games, but they're playing at Montreal and they're playing at Orlando. Montreal is 11th right now in the East, and Orlando is 14th. So they're
Yeah.
going back to playing to some teams that are a little bit at the bottom. Now we know that anything can happen. We know that Orlando's a big rivalry and all that, but Montreal was just beat 4-1 by Nashville, which Miami just beat. So you never know, because it's soccer. They have to play on all the games, and we don't know. Is Messi going to continue playing all the way up until the Copa? The
Right.
Copa is June 20th. So, is he going to play all the way out? Probably not. There will probably be a point at which he stops. And I tried to figure out, a little bit of the math without, of course, we never know anything about when he's going to play or not play as things get to the more crowded part of the season. One of the things that Tata has been saying is that right now, they are going to use these guys in full strength and get and rack up as many points as they can and build that cushion on top of the league, because the time will come where the schedule is crowded again and where players are going to have other commitments. And that is where they could potentially lose some games or tie some games. So right now they are on a mission to get 3 points every single game that they can while they have their full complement of players. And, I looked at the schedule with Copa America starting on June 20th. It means that, Messi, there may be like 4 more games that he plays or so until June 1st. I think after June 1st, there probably will then be a period of time where the Argentina national team is going to have a camp, I'm sure, to lead into Copa America. They're the defending champions. So, he potentially will play maybe through June 1st. And then after that, Lionel Messi could miss 6 or 7 games through the Copa, if depending how far Argentina goes, depending how far these teams go in the Copa America, a team like Argentina that is one of the favorites could miss 6 or 7 games. Drake Callender, I don't know if he's going to make the U.S. team. If he makes the U.S. team, he could also miss time. Matias Rojas, if he were to make the Paraguay team, would miss time. And Leo Campana, if he were to make the Ecuador team, could miss time also. But, the big loss obviously would be Messi and Drake Callender, although he's had a couple of hiccups, he's had a very, very good year last year and is still, one of the better goalies in the league. If he has to leave, they have CJ Dos Santos behind, but he hasn't had too much experience. So, they're building this cushion right now while they have everybody and while everybody's healthy. But come June, everyone should enjoy May. Those of you that are trying to, those of you who haven't been to a game or you're thinking, I really want to see Messi and Luis Suarez play together with all of this stuff we've been seeing. I'm trying to figure out on my calendar, when should I buy a ticket? I would say buy it sooner rather than later, because come June, I think he's going to be gone with the Argentina shirt. And that will go on potentially until the final, which is July 14th. And then after that, Leagues Cup starts. And so there is no MLS during Leagues Cup. There is going to be a break, which is good. They would not have to miss. They're going to break the MLS season. But there's going to be a big stretch where there's going to be no Messi mania.
Yeah, I'm looking at the schedule here and those 6 games you mentioned. You talked about they're going to Montreal next, like you said. Then they go to Orlando next Wednesday. They have a home game against DC United. They have a trip to Vancouver on May 25th as well. They got Atlanta United on May 29th, and then another home game against St. Louis June 1st. So it'll be interesting to see, does he play in all 6 of those? Do they spread him out a little bit? Maybe get him a little bit of minutes management in there where they don't want to burn him too much, because it's not like he's going to stop playing. He's going to keep playing in Copa America. So I doubt he goes full bore 90 minutes maybe in all 6 of those games, but they probably want a high percentage of his participation in there to accomplish said goal that you're talking about, though.
Yeah, and he wants to stay in a rhythm too. This is the minute management really is going to be, it's going to be critical. It's going to be like a chess match to figure out, okay, he wants to be super sharp for Copa America, no question. And so he doesn't want to just sit and rust on the sideline. He wants to play, but how much do you want to play? How much do you risk injury? How much do you risk exhaustion and just overdoing it and wearing out your body before the Copa America starts? You want to be sharp, you want to be fresh, but you want to be sharp. So, it's going to be a balancing act. And I am sure, I mean, not that I have daily conversations with Leo or with Tata about their plans. That's certainly not the case. But I am sure that there's already.
No, you're kidding? I thought you did.
Oh, I know. No. Yeah, we just had a cup of mate yesterday. While I was having mate with Leo yesterday,
there you go.
We were discussing. Leo, I said, Leo,
while I'm
sipping on my silver straw of mate, holding my cup and holding my thermos in the other hand, I said, Leo, what are your plans? Come on, just fill me in. Just let me know.
Seriously,
give me the inside.
We seriously need to follow that mate thing up at some point to try it on this show later on. Maybe we do it during one of those Copa America or Leagues Cup breaks, but at some point.
Yeah, maybe during Copa
During
to
Copa would be
actually
good.
maybe right before the opener, maybe, because it's going to be Argentina is the opener on
On the,
June 20th. So maybe we do it that week to celebrate the Argentina opening up Copa America in the United States. We have a cup of
there you
mate
go.
and
There
see
you
how
go.
it goes.
There you go.
But yeah, if I were to have a conversation with them, I would definitely ask my first question, what is your plan between now and Copa? How much do you plan to play? Because I would almost guarantee that there is a calendar that's already there and
Mm,
they have penciled in, okay, this game I will play. This game I will not play. This game I will play this many minutes. This game I will play this many minutes. And, to gear him up, it's almost like, I've covered 14 Olympics. I'm a big Olympic writer. I love the Olympics. When you saw swimmers tapering, and in track and field and swimming, when they taper, these guys have to
hmm
taper. They have to get ready to be at peak form. And yes, they want to win MLS Cup, but they know that MLS Cup is not until November, December, the deep playoffs. Copa America is starting on June 20th. So as we saw earlier in the season with Champions Cup, which by the way did not go so well for them, as we know. I know they want to put that in the rearview mirror, but think about it. That period when the team was crunched with all these games and all these commitments, they were not playing the way they're playing now. They're playing the way they're playing now because they have 7 days between games. They have no other commitments right now. All of their minds are completely 100% focused on Inter Miami and on beating MLS opponents. Not like, oh, on Saturday, we want you to focus on the MLS, but then on Wednesday, you're going to focus on a Mexican team or,
Right.
or you're going to, it's right now, their full focus is on MLS, and you can see what this team can do when their full
Right.
focus is on one thing, not juggling
Yeah.
around a couple of different obligations.
Yeah, it's a very good point. It's a very good point. I'm glad you said that because I think a lot of people don't realize. I mean, imagine like an NFL team is preparing, like the Dolphins are preparing for the Chiefs on Sunday. Oh, wait a minute, we got to play the Jets on Wednesday, and then something like that. Your mind, you wouldn't be able to. And this team right now, that's the full focus that this team, I'm sure that this franchise, that's what you want to see way down the road. Of course, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Once MLS playoffs come along and make that push for the MLS Cup, when you can take one opponent at a time and not have, oh, we got the Leagues Cup game this week and we've got this game this week and all that going on. So yeah,
And they
that's a
were
very good point.
traveling. I mean, they were traveling. I mean, you're like traveling to Monterrey, and then you have another. You're playing a game here in Miami, and then 2 days later you're traveling to Mexico for a game that is going to be really difficult. By the way, I want to throw this in. This is not about. It's a little about Inter Miami, but the Columbus Crew, what they've done. What they've done in the Champions Cup is it needs to be mentioned because
Mm,
Tata Martino, and Tata's great and everything, but Tata said that it's very difficult for MLS teams to compete in Champions Cup and this and that. And it's very hard because the Mexican league, has more flexibility in their rosters, and their rosters are deeper than the MLS teams, and this and that, and that it's so hard to play in places like Monterrey and so on.
mm.
The Columbus Crew has done it. The Columbus Crew beat both teams that are in that city. They beat Tigres. They beat Monterrey. I mean, we're talking
Yes,
about they've done a great job. They've done a really, really good job in it, and they need to be celebrated. MLS
impressively
has to be
too.
very happy, huh?
I said impressively too. I mean, I think it was a 3-1 win in Mexico. That doesn't
We
happen.
know. We
Yeah.
saw. We saw what
Oh
happens
yeah.
when you go to Mexico. That is not
Yeah.
easy. And the Columbus Crew, without Messi, without Suarez, without Busquets, without
hmm
Alba, without
Yep.
any of that hype, they only happen to be the MLS Cup champions, which everybody seems to forget. This
Right.
team is presumably the best team in MLS. And when they play Inter Miami, that would be interesting
They're going to
because
want to
that
remind them of
team,
that. Yep.
yeah, this Columbus Crew team is they don't have the glitz and the glamour that this team has in Miami. They don't maybe sell as many shirts or as many tickets when they play on the road, even though they are the defending champion and they're
Yeah.
darn good, as we just saw. But they just knocked out two Mexican teams from the Champions Cup, and that's that's impressive. That's really
Yeah.
impressive.
Most
So I
definitely.
wanted
And
to just
yeah.
throw a little shout out to the Columbus Crew, and that there are
Yeah.
other teams in MLS that are good, and the Columbus
Right.
Crew is one of them. The
Yeah.
Columbus Crew is a team that needs to be feared. Yeah.
No, no, and I'm glad you did, because it's funny. After Inter Miami was eliminated, we kind of sort of forgot about Champions Cup. But I'm glad you brought it up, because still going on, and very impressive. Like we said, that performance that the Columbus Crew is putting on. Going back to the Copa America, though, if you're interested in that, and Michelle mentioned the June 20th game, Argentina versus Canada to open the tournament. That game's not going to be here in Miami, though. That one's going to be in Atlanta to start the tournament
Right.
on the 20th. But the first game in Miami, for people watching at home, Uruguay and Panama on June 23rd at Hard Rock Stadium. And if you're wondering when Messi and Argentina come to Miami and play in Copa America, you got to wait till June 29th when they play Peru. That's the game that day as well. But
That
Copa
is
America,
going to be, and then the final, and
and
then
then the
the
final.
Copa
Right.
final is at Hard Rock Stadium as well. So
Correct.
Hard Rock Stadium, for those of you, I know that there's people all over the world from every corner that are watching and listening, but those of you in South Florida or who want to travel, there's going to be a lot of people traveling to Copa
Yeah.
America from all over South America and other places. This is a it's a mini World Cup. It's basically the World Cup of this region and of South America with CONCACAF thrown in this time. Uh, the final is going to be in Hard Rock Stadium on July 14th. And yes, the game June 29th, OMG, the game June 29th is Argentina against Peru. And I can tell you, living in South Florida, that fan base of those two teams is
Yeah.
huge. There are a lot of Peruvians in South America, and they are very proud of their team. And there are a lot of Argentines, as we know. And then there is the whole flock of followers of the Messi religion that are following the Messiah of Messi, and they flock to wherever he goes. They are going to flock here to follow him and to follow this team, and especially as they are the defending champions. So that game of June 29th, good luck finding a ticket that's affordable. You're going to have to go on the secondary market, and it's going to be expensive. But yeah, Copa America is going to be huge. I mean, we're talking about all of all the teams in South America are going to be here. We're talking about Brazil, we're talking about Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Colombia, Ecuador. We're talking about all the teams, Peru in South America, all 10 teams, and then the United States, Canada, Mexico, Jamaica. It's going to be a tremendous, tremendous tournament. And MLS is playing through it, which is, it is what it is. But I think a lot of the focus, especially with the U.S. national team even being in it, it's not just that it's a foreign tournament going on
Right.
during MLS. We're talking about a tournament that includes the U.S. national team. So there's going to be some conflict there between MLS games and Copa America games, just as far as, people's interest and so on. I think the Copa is going to take over for about 5 weeks. And then, not that MLS won't be going on, but there's going to be a lot of focus on Copa America over those 5 weeks. And then they'll return back to Leagues Cup, I guess will be next. And then the MLS, the league MLS games will resume August 24th. So, there's going to be a bit of a gap after Leagues Cup is when they will resume August 24th. That is when the real push for the playoffs will begin, because Copa will be in the rearview mirror. Champions Cup will be far in the rearview mirror in another state by then. And, and then Leagues Cup will also be in the rearview mirror. So August 24th is when MLS will resume again. But between now, I would say the month of May, right now that we're in, is really, really critical for Inter Miami, because they have Messi right now. They
Right.
have Suarez. They have these guys.
Full speed.
They're still missing Jordy, and they're still missing Jordy. Let's not forget one of the Mount Rushmore players, one of the Fab Four, one of the Beatles is missing right now, and they're still doing all this stuff. And he's missed this little stretch right now. So he's going to come back. In the meantime, Franco Negri has been doing a good job in his place. But you know that when Jordi Alba comes back, Franco Negri will probably return to the
Yeah.
bench. Not probably, he will. And they'll have all four again. So it's going to be an
Yeah.
interesting month for sure.
Well, the Beatles are still making great music in spite of not having their drummer with them right now. I can tell you that. That's for sure. And Team USA, you mentioned, by the way, will not be playing in Miami unless they get all the way to the final. June 23rd is their opener in the Copa America where they play Bolivia. That game in Arlington, Texas at Jerry World. That's going to be a crazy atmosphere, I'm sure, too. But yeah, we're getting excited. Copa America, follow us in the next few weeks with coverage of that as we start that up slowly but surely as we get closer and closer. But wanted to switch
Yeah, and it's
topics here
really
to
going to
something.
be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
before
Oh, I
go
want to
ahead,
say
go ahead,
one more
go
thing
ahead, go
about
ahead.
Copa. One last thing on Copa America is that this is also a little bit of a preview for the World Cup as far as the venues.
Yes.
This is a test. This is sort of a test run for MLS venues. I mean, for United States venues as far as the World Cup is coming in 26, and the Copa America is going to be a perfect test because Copa America is huge. It's going to draw huge crowds. There are going to be huge fan fests in every city. There are going to be watch parties at bars that are going to be spilling out over into streets. There's going to be traffic. There's going to be hotel issues. There's going to be, are there enough Ubers? Are there enough taxis? Where are people going to park? The ingress, the egress, all of that stuff these are all going to be tests for World Cup markets. And so it's going to be, in addition to the teams that we're going to be watching, it's also going to be interesting to see how is the fan experience during Copa America, because that is going to be sort of an early look, an early preview of what the fan experience is going to be if you're buying a World Cup ticket in 2026.
Yep. But looking ahead to the summer, not Copa America, but another thing to look forward to. Michelle wanted to talk about here too, and me as well. It perked my attention when I saw what this was about. Miami Dolphins aqua inspired kit coming for Inter Miami. It looks like it's going to be in aqua and orange, a tribute to the '72
Yes.
Dolphins and the Orange Bowl.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's
I know that
awesome.
the team was trying to keep it under wraps, but that's just impossible. There's no way to keep anything under wraps these days. It's just,
No, come on.
I had heard a rumor. I had heard a rumor a few months ago that this was going to happen, that there was going to be a third kit, a third shirt, a third kit that's going to come out sometime this season, that was going to be an homage to the Miami Dolphins, and that it was going to be, in fact, in Dolphin colors. Yes, this team is pink and black, but as we know from the soccer world, teams have other kits that they use. A third one that's like a specialty one, some kind of something, a historic thing, an homage to somebody, to some team, to some whatever. This is going to be an aqua an aqua shirt with orange trim, the Miami Dolphin colors. From what I understand, it's going to be a tribute to the 1972 perfect season Dolphins. Those of you who are
Love it.
fans only of football and not of the American football with two O's,
Right.
which shouldn't be called football because it's played mostly with your hands. The only thing that's with the foot is
Punts and
is
kickoffs.
field goals,
Field goals.
and punts, field
Yeah.
goals and punts, and that's it.
And
But
kickoffs.
anyway, and kickoffs. Let's not forget the
Yeah.
kickoffs. Yes, so there is a little bit of football going on in football.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's mostly running and throwing. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, it's going to be a tribute to the Dolphins, and it's going to be interesting. I did hear also that it's going to have some sort of patch or some sort of commemoration of the Orange Bowl Stadium, which was a historic, iconic stadium that still
Yeah.
breaks my heart that it was
Oh,
knocked down.
you're not alone.
It's just that, yeah, I mean, they should have just renovated that somehow, some way, because that place was unbelievable. The Dolphins, by the way, have never been the same. University of Miami football team has never been the same since that
Even
building went
more.
down. Never,
Yep.
never. It's been, it totally coincides, whether it's a coincidence
Yep.
or not. I don't believe it is. Those teams have not been the same since the Orange Bowl went down. But anyway, so I think there's going to be a tribute to the Orange Bowl, a tribute to the 1972 undefeated Dolphins, which was, an incredible feat to go undefeated in the NFL, in the NFL for a whole season. And it's going to be an aqua. and orange, which is really cool. I think it may even have some lettering. I think the front is going to say Miami, not necessarily Inter Miami. So it's going to be a real sort of Miami sports shirt. The lettering may even be in Miami Vice type letters, according
Nice.
to one of the photos that leaked out on Bleacher Report. You never know if those things that leak out are accurate or not, but I heard that it was fairly accurate from somebody that knows what the shirt looks like. So I don't know which parts of it are not accurate and which are from the Bleacher Report picture that leaked out. But it may be a shirt that just says Miami, not necessarily Inter Miami. And I could totally see, by the way, it's going to be on sale apparently in the beginning of July. During Copa America, during the start of Copa America, those first few weeks, I believe they're being shipped from Adidas in late June, according to some people I know. They're going to be shipped to the distributors in late June and they'll be in sale in early July. The cool thing about this shirt is that, as anyone knows who is an American football fan, to wear a replica jersey of an NFL team, those are thick. They are thick and they are heavy. And we live in Miami. It's very hot and it's very humid. The soccer shirts are much more comfortable to wear, just to wear around. And you see in Miami, so many people now are wearing soccer shirts all around. When you see people around town, they're wearing soccer shirts now. And I think people will go to Dolphin games wearing that Inter Miami aqua and orange kit.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be able to support both teams. You'll be able to wear that shirt for Inter Miami games, but you could also wear that shirt for the Dolphin games, right? Because it's nice and cool, short sleeves, not that thick
Especially
material.
September games. Yeah.
Yes,
September games are
especially
brutal. Yeah.
preseason games in August, September
Yeah.
games. So I could see there being some of that aqua and orange mixed in for NFL games. So that's going to be fun. I think that'll be kind of just sort of a fun summer treat for fans, particularly ones who are from this area, who
Yeah.
have a real allegiance to the Dolphins. Yeah.
I may have to invest in a Messi Dolphins jersey in once they're out. But I like it because look, this team we're talking about Inter Miami is trying to be one of the greatest of all time, right? They're trying to cement their legacy as this is the greatest MLS team that's ever been. If they pull off everything they're hoping to pull off, well, how fitting if they do, and in retrospect they pay homage to the greatest team in NFL history, the perfect season, and all of that. So I think it's a cool idea. It connects even more to your city, to your fan base.
It's
to
a
people
great
who,
cross
yeah,
promotion. It's a great cross
absolutely,
promotion.
absolutely,
The Dolphins have a huge following. The Dolphins have a huge following, and Inter Miami, I'm sure, is thinking, we can bring in some of those fans, and the Dolphins. I mean, not that they need more fans, but they're reaching out to a largely Hispanic market. Then, if the Dolphin Inter Miami crossover, you're reaching a different audience. Sometime you may be reaching fans who are here from Latin America, who are not as familiar with American football. You get them cross promoting the two teams. I think it's a cool idea. I really do. I think it's a very
yeah,
cool idea. And I do think that people are going to like that shirt. People love soccer shirts. That's one thing about this sport. There's an obsession with the shirts.
oh
They
yeah,
exchange the shirts after the games. They take off the shirt and trade them. A lot of people collect soccer jerseys, soccer shirts. It's a real big thing when a team comes out with a new kit, the home one, the away one. I know it's in all sports now. It's become a bigger deal what the athletes are wearing. It's a huge thing in every sport now, but it's been that way in this sport for a long time. So I think this is one that'll be a real sort of a souvenir. I think this will be a really good souvenir shirt.
Well, even when Inter Miami, in the pre-Messi era, even when they were at their worst, even when they were cellar dwellers, and you were not to remind you of those days, you lived them, Michelle, but you went to that stadium, shirts everywhere. I mean, and you went around Miami, and you'd see a little bit of the not to the level that it is now, but you did see Inter Miami shirts, and this is a franchise in its infancy at that point, and you would see that because it's cool. Like, yeah, the soccer shirt looks cool. You always see people gathered on Sundays watching the UEFA Champions League with supporting Barcelona, wearing their Barca gear, stuff like that. So what you're saying is true. So now you add this to it. I think I think you're going to see a lot of that. Not only in the summer, I think it is going to carry into the fall, and you're going to CBS or Fox or whoever you're going to got people in the crowd wearing that during Dolphins games when they're sweating their butts off at 1 o'clock on a Sunday in the middle of September.
Yeah,
So.
no, there's a lot of cross promotion with the F1 that just happened this week. A lot, almost the entire team was there in some way or another. Inter Miami managed, everybody had tickets and everything. So yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun summer.
Yeah. Well, let's finish things up here for this week's episode, talking a little bit about this next game against Montreal. Montreal, like you mentioned before, in 11th place. So again, potentially winnable game here, and potentially to grab another one of those 3 points to just keep padding the lead. Michelle, tell us a little bit about Montreal and a team that Inter Miami is familiar with. They've played Montreal a lot over the last few years.
They're very familiar. Also, a few of their best players happen to be former Inter Miami players. That's the one thing I'll say before we wrap up is that Montreal, they're struggling a little bit. They're in 11th place. However, they have Joseph Martinez and they have Ariel Lassiter and they have Bryce Duke. All three of those are players who were key players on the Inter Miami team, and they know this team well. And believe me, they are sick of hearing about how good Inter Miami is now, because this team was not that when they were playing for this team. So I am sure that as much as everyone in the league is pretty sick of hearing about Inter Miami and Leo Messi and Suarez and blah, 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 I'm sure everybody is sick of them. I guarantee you that the guys on Montreal who played for this team before would love to knock Miami off its pedestal, even though they have friends on the team, I'm sure, and all that, but they were discarded. Those guys were discarded to make room for these superstars, and they want to show something. Believe me, when they play, and they're playing up there, they're playing at home, they were thrown to the curb so that they could bring in these guys, and they're going to want to show something in this game. So it could be an interesting game. Miami's on this roll. They're feeling great. They're scoring 3 goals a game, 6 goals a game, running the table like nobody's business. Montreal is going to want to put an end to that right away.
Yeah, I get the whole chip on the shoulder, and they're kind of like the cast-offs and all of that, and that'll inspire them for sure. But the role this team's on right now, it doesn't matter where they're playing. It seems they just take that machine and steamroll you with it, and we might see that happen again against Montreal, but we'll see. But we'll be back to recap some of that next week on the next episode of Inside Inter Miami. So we thank you again. Remember, you can catch us on YouTube. You can catch us on MiamiHerald.com. Obviously, on audio, you can catch Michelle. If you're watching it, you can see Michelle do that every week. But if you're listening, catch us on Spotify, iTunes, whichever podcatcher you like to listen us to. We appreciate it. And we will be talking to you again next week. For Michelle Kaufman, I'm Andre Fernandez. Enjoy the games this weekend.